The 43rd floor of Hale Industries didn't feel like an office. It felt like a high-altitude cage wrapped in velvet and silence. At 3 in the morning, the city below was nothing but a grid of distant, indifferent lights, while up here the air was thick with the scent of expensive leather and the sharp, metallic tang of ozone. I was the invisible woman, just a uniform and a cleaning cart, trained to scrub away the sins of the wealthy without asking questions. But invisibility is a fragile shield. As I moved toward the double doors, the temperature dropped with a violence that made my breath hitch, warning me that tonight I wasn't walking into a room to clean it. I was walking into a tomb. The fluorescent lights in the elevator hummed their familiar dirge as I rode up to the 43rd floor, my cleaning cart rattling against the polished brass rail. 3 in the morning. The city sprawled below through the glass walls, a constellation of yellow and white that never truly slept. My reflection stared back at me, dark circles under brown eyes, hair pulled into a bun that had started the shift neat and now listed to one side. 34 years old, and I looked 40. Single motherhood and night shifts would do that. The elevator chimed. The doors whispered open onto the executive level of Hale Industries, where the carpet was so thick it swallowed sound. I pushed my cart forward, wheels suddenly silent, and breathed in the scent of leather and expensive wood polish. This floor always unsettled me. Too quiet, too perfect. Like a museum after hours, full of beautiful things that no one was meant to touch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with cleaning solution raw hands. * Mom, can't sleep. When are you home? Orion. My chest tightened. 12 years old and still afraid of the dark some nights, though he'd never admit it. I typed back quickly. * 2 more hours, baby. Aunt Elara is right downstairs if you need her. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. I pocketed the phone and moved toward the corner office, the one with the name I'd only seen on the building's facade, Draaven Hale, CEO. I'd never cleaned it before. Mr. Hale's assistant had left specific instructions on my supervisor's desk. Tonight only, deep clean. Don't touch the desk. The door was already unlocked. I pushed it open and cold air rushed out, sharp enough to make me gasp. The thermostat must have malfunctioned. My breath misted in front of my face as I stepped inside, and goosebumps rippled up my arms beneath my thin uniform. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the furniture was all dark wood and chrome, minimalist and severe. But it was the smell that stopped me, copper and ozone, like the air before a lightning strike. Wrong. Everything felt wrong. I should have left, should have called building security. Instead, I moved deeper into the room, my sneakers soundless on the marble floor. The cold intensified with each step, and that metallic scent grew stronger. That's when I saw him. A man lay on the leather sofa near the windows, perfectly still. He wore a black suit, immaculate, despite his position, and his skin was so pale it seemed to glow in the ambient light from the city. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His hands were folded on his chest, like a corpse arranged for viewing. "Sir?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Mr. Hale?" No response, no rise and fall of his chest. My heart began to hammer. I moved closer, professional instinct warring with the primal urge to run. I'd taken a CPR course last year when Orion joined the swim team. I knew what death looked like, and this man was either dead or very close to it. "Sir, can you hear me?" I touched his shoulder. His skin was cold through the expensive fabric, cold as the air around us. But there was something else, a vibration barely perceptible, like touching a speaker with the volume turned down low. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. His skin felt like marble, smooth and impossibly hard. Not right. Not human. The thought came unbidden, and I pushed it away. Shock did strange things to perception. I needed to call 911. Needed to start compressions. Needed to... His eyes opened. I jerked back, but his hand shot out faster than sight and caught my wrist. His grip was iron, and those eyes, silver, not grey but actual metallic silver, locked onto mine with an intensity that stopped my scream in my throat. "Don't." His voice was a rasp, barely audible. "Don't call." Then his eyes rolled back, and his grip loosened. His hand fell away, and he went still again, but now I could see the shallow, irregular rise of his chest. Breathing, barely. My wrist burned where he'd touched me, a cold fire that sank into my bones. I stumbled back, reaching for my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. No signal. 43 floors up, and no signal. Impossible. The lights flickered. Once, twice. In the strobing darkness, I could have sworn I saw shadows moving along the walls, independent of any light source. He was dying. Whatever he was, whoever he was dying in front of me. I'd been a mother for 12 years. I'd held Orion through fevers that spiked to 104, through the night his father walked out and never came back, through the fear that we'd lose our apartment, our stability, everything. I'd learned that sometimes you don't think, you just move. I dropped to my knees beside the sofa and tilted his head back. His skin was still that impossible cold, but his lips had a faint blue tinge now. Oxygen deprivation. I pinched his nose, took a breath, and sealed my mouth over his. The cold was shocking, like kissing winter itself. I exhaled, watching his chest rise, then pulled back and did it again. His lips were smooth, and that strange vibration I'd felt in his shoulder was stronger here, thrumming against my mouth like a current. 30 compressions. I positioned my hands on his chest, feeling the hardness of his sternum through his shirt. It was like pressing on stone, but I pushed anyway, counting under my breath. The rhythm was automatic, drilled into muscle memory by the instructor's voice. Asterisk, stay in alive by the Bee Gees. That's your tempo. 2 more breaths. His lips were warmer now, or maybe I was just getting numb. The cold was seeping into me, traveling down my throat with each exhale, settling in my lungs like frost. On the 4th round of compressions, something changed. His chest rose on its own, a real breath, deep and shuddering. I pulled back, relief flooding through me, but then his eyes opened again, and this time they were fully aware, fully focused, fully silver. He sat up in one fluid motion, impossibly fast, and his hand cupped the back of my head before I could move. His other hand pressed against my chest, over my heart, and I felt that vibration surge through me like an electric shock. "What have you done?" His voice was stronger now, rich and dark as velvet, not angry. Awed, horrified. I saved you. You weren't breathing. You bound yourself to me." His thumb brushed my cheek, and I realized I was crying. When had I started crying? The kiss of life. The old magic. "How did you know?" I don't understand. I need to call." "No." His grip tightened. Not painful, but immovable. "Listen to me. Your life is now tied to mine. Your blood sings to me. I can feel your heart beating as if it were my own." I tried to pull away but couldn't move. The room tilted, or maybe I was falling, but his arms caught me, and suddenly I was against his chest, hearing the slow, steady thrum of his heart beneath my ear. Too slow. A human heart didn't beat like that. "What are you?" I whispered. His laugh was low, almost sad. "Something that should have stayed dead. And you, Nerida Moss." My name in his mouth sent shivers down my spine. "You are now the only thing keeping me tethered to this world." The windows exploded inward. Glass rained down in a glittering cascade, but none of it touched us. Draaven moved, spinning us, so his body shielded mine, and I felt rather than saw the barrier he created, a shimmer in the air that the glass shattered against like water on stone. A figure stood in the broken window frame, silhouetted against the city lights. Female, tall, with hair that moved in a wind I couldn't feel. So, her voice carried across the room, musical and cruel. "The king wakes, and he's already found a pet." Draaven's arms tightened around me. I felt his lips brush my ear, his breath cold against my skin. "Whatever happens," he murmured, "don't invite her in." The office doors slammed shut behind us with a sound like thunder. The locks engaged with a series of metallic clicks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We were trapped, and I still had no idea what I'd just become. The shimmer around us solidified into something I could almost see, threads of silver light weaving through the air, catching the glass shards mid-fall and suspending them like frozen rain. My fingers clutched at Draaven's shirt, feeling the expensive fabric bunch under my grip, feeling the unnatural stillness of his chest beneath it. That too slow heartbeat pressed against my palm. The woman in the window tilted her head, and the city lights behind her caught on something metallic woven through her hair. Blades, I realized. Tiny silver blades braided into dark strands that moved with a life of their own. Seraphina. Draaven's voice carried a weight I'd never heard before, centuries of authority compressed into 3 syllables. "You were not summoned." Her laugh was like breaking crystal. "Summoned? Oh, my king. You've been asleep so long you've forgotten how the game is played." She stepped onto the windowsill, balanced there in heels that should have made it impossible, and I watched her nostrils flare as she scented the air. "The council didn't send me. I came because I was curious. Rumors of your awakening have been entertaining." The glass around us began to orbit, slow and deliberate, each shard reflecting our faces in fractured pieces. I could see myself in them, wide-eyed, pressed against a man who shouldn't exist, my cleaning uniform still smelling faintly of industrial bleach and lemon polish. "Leave." Draaven's arm around my waist tightened incrementally. "This doesn't concern you." "But it does." Seraphina's gaze fixed on me, and I felt it like ice water down my spine. "Because that," she gestured at me with one elegant hand, "is human, fragile, temporary. And you're holding her like she's made of something precious." The temperature in the room dropped. I could see my breath now, small clouds forming with each exhale, and frost began to creep across the windows in patterns that looked almost like writing. "What I hold is mine." The words rumbled through Draaven's chest into my back. "And what is mine is not for discussion." Seraphina's smile showed too many teeth. "The council will want to meet her." "You know the laws, Draaven. Any human who knows of us must be bound." He cut her off. "She is bound to me, the old way." Blood and intention. Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. I felt Draaven's hand move to the small of my back, his fingers spreading wide, and something warm bloomed there, a heat that spread through my body like liquid gold, chasing away the cold. "You didn't." Seraphina's voice had gone quiet, which somehow made it worse. "You couldn't have. The ritual requires." "I know what it requires." The warmth at my back intensified, and suddenly I could feel things I shouldn't be able to feel. the pulse of the city below us, the presence of other beings moving through the night, some human, some decidedly not, and underneath it all, Draaven's consciousness, vast and ancient and wrapped around mine like a protective shell. "Show me," Serafina demanded. Draaven's hand moved to my shoulder, turning me slightly, and I felt his thumb press against the base of my neck. The touch sent electricity racing down my spine, and I gasped as light bloomed beneath my skin, silver threads that traced up my throat and across my collarbone, visible through my thin uniform shirt. "Satisfied?" Draaven asked. Serafina's expression had gone cold. "The council will still want to see her. Bound or not, she's a security risk, and if you've truly claimed her the old way—" She paused, and her smile returned, sharp and calculating. "Then she's also a weapon. One they'll want to understand. They can want." Draaven moved us backward, away from the window, toward the heavy oak doors. "They won't have." "You're starting a war over a cleaning woman?" Serafina laughed, but there was no humor in it. How delightfully sentimental. The doors behind us opened without anyone touching them. Kalen stood in the hallway, his face carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand rested near his hip, where a weapon might be concealed. "Escort Miss Moss to the car," Draaven said, his voice carrying that same ancient authority. "Take her to the estate. The East Wing. Post guards." "Wait." I started, but his hand squeezed my shoulder gently. "Trust me," he murmured, so low only I could hear. "Just for tonight. Trust me." Kalen's hand on my elbow was firm but not rough, guiding me toward the elevator while Draaven remained in the doorway, a barrier between me and the woman who still stood in the broken window. I looked back once and saw him silhouetted against the city lights, saw the way shadows seemed to gather around him like a cloak. Then the elevator doors closed, and I was alone with Kalen and the too fast descent that made my stomach drop. "He's never done this before," Kalen said quietly. The elevator's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face. "Claimed someone, protected someone, in all the years I've served him." "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, too high, too thin. "Long enough to know this changes everything." The car was waiting in the underground garage, a black sedan with windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. Kalen opened the back door, and I slid across leather seats that smelled like new car and something else, something old and spicy like incense in a church. The drive took 40 minutes through streets that grew progressively emptier, buildings giving way to trees, city lights fading into darkness, punctuated only by the occasional mansion gate. I pressed my face against the window and watched my reflection ghost across the glass, watched the silver marks on my neck pulse faintly with each heartbeat. What had he done to me? The estate appeared suddenly, iron gates that opened silently, a driveway lined with trees so old their branches formed a tunnel overhead. The house itself was stone and shadow, 3 stories of Gothic architecture that looked like it had been transplanted from another century. Lights glowed in some windows, warm and inviting, but others remained dark, watching. Kalen led me through a side entrance, up a staircase with worn carpet that muffled our footsteps, down a hallway lined with portraits of people in old-fashioned clothing. Their eyes seemed to follow us. At the end of the hall, he opened a door and gestured me inside. "The East Wing," he said. "You'll be safe here. There are guards posted at both ends of the corridor. Don't leave this room until Draaven returns." "When will that be?" "When he's finished with Serafina." Kalen's expression was grim, and whatever message she came to deliver, he left, and I heard the lock engage. Not trapped, I told myself. Protected. There was a difference. The room was beautiful, four-poster bed with curtains that looked hand-embroidered, a fireplace already lit and crackling, windows that overlooked gardens I could barely see in the darkness. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out with shaking hands. 3 missed calls from Aunt Elara. 2 texts. Asterisk, where are you? Orion is asking. Asterisk, Nerida. Call me. Something feels wrong. I tried to dial, but the call wouldn't connect. No signal. I moved to the window, held the phone up, watched the bars flicker and die. The estate was blocking it somehow. Or something was. A soft knock at the door made me jump. Miss Moss? A woman's voice, gentle and aged. May I enter? I opened the door to find an elderly woman in a grey dress, her white hair pulled back in a neat bun. She carried a tray with tea and what looked like sandwiches, and her smile was warm despite the strangeness of the situation. I'm Mrs. Hartwell, she said, moving past me to set the tray on a small table by the fireplace. I manage the household. Mr. Hale asked me to ensure you're comfortable. I need to call my son. The words came out harder than I intended. My phone won't work. Mrs. Hartwell's expression softened. The estate has protections. They interfere with modern technology. But there's a landline. She pointed to an antique phone on the nightstand, all brass and rotary dial. It connects to the outside world. I practically lunged for it, fingers fumbling with the rotary dial as I spun out Aunt Elara's number. The ringtone sounded strange, distant, like calling through water. Nerida? Aunt Elara's voice was sharp with worry. Where are you? What's happening? I'm safe. I looked around the room, at the luxury that surrounded me, at the silver marks still glowing faintly on my skin. I'm with my employer. There was an incident at work, and he's keeping me here for security reasons. Security reasons? I could hear the disbelief. Nerida, you clean offices. What kind of security? Is Orion okay? I cut her off. Is he safe? A pause. Too long. My heart began to hammer. He's fine, Aunt Elara said finally. He's asleep. But Nerida, there was a man here earlier, asking about you, about your schedule. He said he was from your employer's company, doing a background check, but something about him felt off. The room seemed to tilt. What did he look like? Tall, very pale. He wore a suit that looked expensive, and he had these eyes, grey, like storm clouds. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I sank onto the bed, the phone cord stretching taut. What did you tell him? Nothing. I said you were at work and that I didn't discuss family business with strangers. He left a card. I heard rustling paper being picked up. It just has a phone number on it. No name, no company. Don't call it. The words came out sharp, urgent. Aunt Elara, listen to me. Don't let Orion out of your sight. Don't let anyone in the house. And if that man comes back, Nerida, you're scaring me. Good. I closed my eyes, pressed my free hand against the marks on my neck. They were warm now, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. Be scared. Be careful. I'll explain everything when I can, but right now I need you to trust me. Keep Orion safe. How long will you be gone? I looked at Mrs. Hartwell, who was pouring tea with steady hands, her face carefully neutral. I don't know. After I hung up, the silence in the room felt oppressive. Mrs. Hartwell handed me a cup of tea, chamomile, from the smell, and gestured to the sandwiches. You should eat, she said gently. It's going to be a long night. How long have you worked here? I asked, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. 37 years. She settled into the chair across from me, her movements precise and practiced. I was here when the previous master passed. I was here when Mr. Hale arrived. I've seen many things in this house, Miss Moss. Things that would strain belief, like vampires. She didn't flinch, among other things. And you stayed. Where else would I go? Her smile was sad. Once you've seen behind the curtain, the ordinary world feels like a lie. Besides, Mr. Hale is a good master. Stern, yes. Ancient, and sometimes frightening, certainly. But good. He protects what is his. I'm not his. The protest sounded weak, even to my own ears. Mrs. Hartwell's gaze dropped to my neck, to the silver marks that I could feel pulsing beneath my skin. Aren't you? Before I could answer, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The fire in the fireplace guttered and dimmed. Mrs. Hartwell stood quickly, her teacup rattling in its saucer. He's here, she whispered. The door opened without a knock. Draaven filled the doorway, still in his suit but somehow different. His tie was gone, his collar open, and there was something wild in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Blood stained his cuff, dark against the white fabric. "Leave us," he said to Mrs. Hartwell. She left quickly, closing the door behind her. Draaven crossed the room in 3 strides. Too fast, impossibly fast, and suddenly he was in front of me, his hands framing my face, his thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. "They know about Orion," he said. The world stopped. What? Serafina didn't come alone. She came with information. A message from Thaddeus. He's the eldest of the council. They've been watching you. Watching me. They know I woke because of you, and they know you have a son. His jaw tightened. They want to meet him. No. The word came out flat. Absolute. No. He's 8 years old. He's human. He has nothing to do with any of this. He has everything to do with this. Draaven's hands dropped from my face, and he turned away, pacing to the window. "You're bound to me now. That makes you part of our world, whether you want to be or not. And any children you have are off limits." I stood, my hands clenched into fists. "I don't care what your laws are. I don't care what the council wants. They can't have him. I know." He turned back to me, and the look in his eyes was fierce, possessive. "Which is why I've already sent Caelan to collect him. He and your aunt are being brought here. Tonight, they'll be under my protection, in my home where the council can't touch them without declaring war." Relief and terror warred in my chest. "You can't just kidnap my family." "I can." I did. "They'll be here within the hour." He moved closer, and I could smell copper on him, blood, I realized, though I couldn't see any wounds. "Nerida, you need to understand what's happening. The council rules our kind, has for millennia. They maintain order, enforce the laws that keep us hidden from humanity. But they also fear change, fear anything that threatens their power. And I'm a threat. You're an unknown. A human who knows our secrets, who's bound to their king in a way that hasn't been done in centuries. And your son." He paused, his expression troubled. "There are prophecies, old ones, about a child born of 2 worlds who could tip the balance of power. Orion isn't special. He's just a kid who likes dinosaurs and hates broccoli. Maybe—" Draaven's hand came up, his fingers ghosting over the marks on my neck. "Or maybe he's exactly what the prophecies describe. Either way, the council will want to find out. And their methods of investigation are not gentle." The fire crackled behind us, sending shadows dancing across the walls. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud in the silence, could feel the marks on my skin warming under his touch. "How long?" I asked. "How long do we have before they come for him?" "Days, maybe a week." Thaddeus is old, cautious. He'll want to gather information first, build his case, but once he moves, Draaven's expression darkened. We need to be ready. Ready for what? War, if necessary. I pulled away from him, needing space to think, to breathe. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, despite the earlier cold. This is insane. 3 hours ago I was cleaning your office. Now you're talking about war and prophecies and you're terrified. He said it simply, without judgment. You should be. This world I've pulled you into, it's dangerous, ancient, built on blood and power and secrets that could destroy you. Then let me go. I turned to face him. Release me from whatever you did. Let me take Orion and disappear. We'll move, change our names. You'll never see us again. I can't or won't. Both. He closed the distance between us again, and this time I didn't back away. The binding isn't something that can be undone. It's written into your blood now, into your very essence. And even if I could release you, his hand came up, cupping my cheek, his thumb tracing my lower lip. I wouldn't. I've been asleep for 50 years, Nerida. 50 years of darkness and dreams, and nothing. You woke me. You pulled me back into the world. Do you have any idea what that means? No. My voice came out breathless. His touch was cold, but not unpleasant, like marble that had been sitting in the shade. It means you're mine, and I protect what's mine, with everything I have, with everything I am. The intensity in his gaze should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something else, something warm and dangerous unfurling in my chest. I don't belong to anyone. Don't you? His other hand came to rest on my hip, and suddenly we were too close, the air between us charged with something electric. Then why can I feel your heartbeat, as if it were my own? Why does your fear taste like honey on my tongue? Why does every instinct I have scream at me to keep you close, keep you safe, keep you? A knock at the door interrupted him. Kalen's voice came through, urgent and low. They're here, the boy and the aunt. But sir, there's a problem. Draaven's expression went cold, dangerous. He released me and moved to the door, opening it to reveal Kalen's grim face. What problem? The boy isn't alone. There's someone with him. Someone who followed them from the house. My blood turned to ice. Who? Kalen's gaze shifted to me, and I saw something like pity in his eyes. He says his name is Thaddeus, and he says he's here to meet the child of prophecy. I was moving before I could think, pushing past Draaven, running down the hallway toward the stairs. I could hear them behind me. Draaven's sharp command to stop, Kalen's footsteps, but I didn't care. Orion was here. Orion was in danger. The main foyer was marble and crystal, lit by a chandelier that cast prismatic light across the walls. Aunt Ilara stood near the door, her arm around Orion's shoulders, her face pale with fear, and beside them, he was tall, impossibly tall, with silver hair that fell past his shoulders, and eyes that were completely black, no white, no iris, just endless darkness. He wore robes that looked like they belonged in a museum, deep purple embroidered with symbols that hurt to look at directly, and he was smiling at my son, Orion. I didn't recognize my own voice. It came out raw, desperate. My son turned, and his face lit up. Mom, this is so cool. Mr. Thaddeus was telling me about. Get away from him. I was across the floor in seconds, pulling Orion behind me, putting my body between him and the ancient thing in purple robes. Thaddeus's smile widened. Protective. Good. The prophecy spoke of a fierce mother, one who would burn the world to keep her child safe. His gaze shifted past me, and I felt Draaven's presence at my back. My king, how unexpected to see you standing guard over a human child. He's under my protection. Draaven's voice carried absolute authority. As is his mother, as is everyone in this house. You overstep, Thaddeus. Do I? The ancient vampire tilted his head. I merely wished to meet the boy, to see if the old words held truth. He looked back at Orion, and something flickered in those black eyes. Tell me, child, do you dream? Everyone dreams, Orion said, his voice uncertain. I could feel him pressed against my back, could feel his small hands clutching my shirt. But do you dream of blood and shadow, of wings that blot out the sun, of a throne made of bones and crowned with stars? Silence fell across the foyer. I felt Draaven go very still behind me. Sometimes, Orion whispered, sometimes I dream about flying. And there's always this voice that tells me I'm special, that I'm supposed to do something important. Thaddeus's expression transformed into something terrible and triumphant. The child of two worlds, the bridge between darkness and light. He is exactly what the prophecy foretold. No, I pulled Orion closer. He's 8. He's human. Whatever you think he is the key. Thaddeus turned his black gaze to Draaven. The key to your power, my king, and the key to your destruction. The prophecy is clear. The child will either save our kind or damn us all. The council must study him, must understand what he is, what he can become. The council can go to hell. Draaven moved around me, placing himself between us and Thaddeus. The boy stays here, under my protection, and if you or any of the council try to take him, you'll what? Thaddeus laughed, and the sound echoed through the foyer like breaking glass. Start a war? Over a human child and his cleaning woman mother? You've grown sentimental in your sleep, Draaven. Weak. The temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the marble floor, across the walls, across the crystal chandelier, until it looked like it was made of ice. Draaven's power filled the room, ancient and terrible, and I felt it pressing against my skin like a physical weight. Weak. Draaven's voice had gone quiet, which somehow made it more frightening. Shall I show you how weak I've become? But before either of them could move, Orion stepped out from behind me. His small hand slipped into Draaven's, and I watched my 8-year-old son look up at the Vampire King with complete trust. Don't fight, Orion said softly. Please, I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. And in that moment, watching my son stand between two ancient powers, I realized the terrible truth. He was special. The dreams, the voice, the way he'd always seemed older than his years, it had all been leading to this. My son wasn't just a child. He was something more, something that could change everything. Thaddeus smiled, slow and satisfied. The child speaks wisdom beyond his years. Perhaps there is hope for him yet. He looked at me, and I felt his gaze like ice water down my spine. 3 days, Miss Moss. I give you 3 days to prepare. Then the council will come, and we will test your son. We will see if he is truly the bridge the prophecy speaks of. He turned toward the door, his robes sweeping across the frost-covered marble. And if he is well, then we will decide his fate. The door closed behind him with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. I sank to my knees, pulling Orion into my arms, feeling his small body shake against mine. Aunt Elara was beside me in an instant, her hands on my shoulders, her voice murmuring reassurances I couldn't quite hear over the roaring in my ears. 3 days. We had 3 days before the council came for my son. 3 days to figure out what he was, what he could do, and how to keep him safe from creatures that had been hunting and killing for thousands of years. I looked up at Draaven, still standing where Orion had left him, frost melting around his feet in slow rivulets. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held something that might have been fear. "Can you protect him?" I asked. "Can you really keep him safe?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I will die before I let them take him." It should have been reassuring. Instead, all I could think was that death might not be enough. Not against the council, not against prophecy and fate and powers I didn't understand. Orion pulled back from my embrace, his small face serious. "Mom, that man, Mr. Thaddeus, he said something else. Before you got there, he said that the prophecy talks about a sacrifice, that someone has to die for the bridge to be complete." My blood turned to ice. "What?" he said. Orion's voice dropped to a whisper. "He said that to save everyone, the king has to give up what he loves most. And that's you, Mom. He loves you. I can see it. Which means, no." Draaven's voice cut through the air like a blade. "The prophecy is wrong. It has to be," but I could see it in his face. The terrible knowledge. The choice that was coming. Save the world, or save me. And my son, my beautiful, special, impossible son, was the one who would force him to decide. The silence in the penthouse stretched like pulled wire, ready to snap. I looked between them. My son with his ancient eyes and impossible power, and the vampire king whose love had become a weapon, turned against us both. "There is no prophecy," I said. My voice didn't shake, couldn't shake. "Not now. There's only what we choose." Draaven's jaw tightened. "Nerida, no." I stood, pulling Orion against my side. "I've spent 8 years making impossible choices, working nights so my son could sleep safely, choosing between groceries and heat, between my pride and his future." My fingers found Orion's hair, that familiar gesture of protection. "Every single day I chose him, and I'm still here. We're both still here." "This is different," Draaven said, but his voice had gone rough. The council is coming whether we believe in prophecies or not." I looked at my son. "Show me again. What you did to the window." Orion hesitated, then lifted his hand. The frost came slower this time, deliberate, spreading across the glass in patterns that looked almost like writing. Ancient symbols I couldn't read, but somehow felt in my bones. "He's not just a bridge," I whispered. "He's a translator. Between their world and ours." Kylan stepped forward from his post by the door, his scarred face thoughtful. "The archivist would know. Lysandra has texts older than the council itself. Then we go to her," I said. "Now, before they come for him." The archives existed in a space that hurt to perceive, a building that seemed to shift between abandoned warehouse and ancient temple, depending on how the light hit it. Lysandra met us at the entrance, her silver hair catching moonlight that shouldn't have reached this deep into the city. "I wondered when you would come," she said, her gaze settling on Orion with an intensity that made me step between them. She smiled, a knowing curve of lips. "Protective. Good. He will need that before this is done." Inside, the air tasted of old paper and older magic. Shelves stretched into impossible distances, filled with books and scrolls and objects that predated written language. Lysandra moved through them like a woman walking through her own memories. "The prophecy Thaddeus quoted is incomplete," she said, pulling down a manuscript bound in something that looked disturbingly like skin. "Deliberately so. The council has always feared what they cannot control, and the original text," she opened it carefully, pages crackling. "The original text speaks not of sacrifice, but of synthesis." My heart hammered against my ribs. What does that mean? It means, Lysandra said, tracing words I couldn't read, that the bridge is not meant to be crossed. It's meant to be lived in. A space between worlds where both can exist without one consuming the other. Her finger stopped on an illustration. A child with dark hair and eyes that held galaxies, standing between a figure wreathed in shadow and one burning with light. The king's greatest love is not a person. It's the possibility of change, of evolution, of a future where his kind doesn't have to hide or hunt or live in the spaces between heartbeats. Draaven had gone very still beside me. And Orion is the proof that such a future is possible. Lysandra turned the page, revealing another image. Older, the ink faded to brown. A woman holding a child, surrounded by vampires who knelt rather than threatened. And the woman's face, that's impossible. I breathed, because it was my face, not similar, not reminiscent. Mine. Reincarnation is a human concept. Lysandra said softly, but souls are older than species, older than the divide between living and undead. You've been here before, Nerida Moss. Both of you have. And you failed then, which is why the prophecy exists at all, a warning and a hope that this time you might succeed. Orion's hand found mine, his small fingers cold. I remember, he whispered. Sometimes, in dreams, there was fire, and people screaming, and his voice broke. I couldn't save you. The grief in his words was too old for an 8-year-old, too deep. I pulled him close, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones like winter cold. The council convenes at midnight, Kaelin said from the doorway. We have 4 hours. Then we use them, I said. Lysandra, what do we need to prove this? How do we make them listen? She closed the manuscript carefully. The seal of the ancients. It was lost centuries ago. But if you had it, if you could invoke the old laws. She paused, studying my face. You already know where it is, don't you? I did. The knowledge sat in my mind, like something I'd always known but forgotten. My aunt's house. The medallion she wore. She said it was a family heirloom, that I should give it to Orion when he was old enough to understand. Ilara knew, Lysandra said. She's been guarding it, waiting. We drove through the city in Draaven's car, the streets empty in that dead hour between night and morning. Aunt Ilara's house sat dark, but she opened the door before I could knock, already dressed, the medallion hanging around her neck. I wondered if you'd figure it out in time, she said, lifting the chain over her head. The metal was warm when she pressed it into my palm, inscribed with symbols that matched the ones Orion had drawn in frost. Your mother wore this, and her mother before her. We've always been guardians, Nerida, keepers of the bridge. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. Did you know? I asked. About Orion. I suspected. Her hand touched my cheek, gentle. You were always meant for something more than night shifts and struggle. I just didn't know how much more, until I saw him. She looked at my son, standing quiet between Draaven and Kaelin. Be brave, little one. Your mothers have been brave before you. The council chamber existed beneath the city, in caverns that had been old when the first settlers arrived. Vampires filled the space, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, their eyes reflecting torchlight like animals in the dark. The council sat elevated, 5 figures in robes that might have been black or might have been the absence of color itself. Thaddeus stood at the center, his face carved from satisfaction. You brought the child. How convenient. We've come to invoke the old laws, I said, my voice carrying in the stone space, to present evidence that contradicts your interpretation of the prophecy. A human has no standing here, one of the council members said, her voice like wind through graves. This human carries the seal of the ancients. I lifted the medallion, letting it catch the light. The reaction was immediate, vampires drawing back, the council members leaning forward. And invokes the right to speak in defense of Draaven Hale, who cannot speak for himself under your laws. Thaddeus's expression darkened. The seal was lost. The seal was protected, I said, by my bloodline, as it has been for generations, and under the old laws, the seal bearer has the right to present evidence before any execution is carried out. The eldest council member, a creature so old his skin looked like parchment, raised one hand. The law is clear. Speak, human, but know that lies before this council mean death. I stepped forward, Orion's hand in mine. The prophecy speaks of a bridge. You believe it means a threat, a way for humans to cross into your world and destroy you. But you're wrong. I gestured to my son. He's not a bridge to be crossed. He's a space to be inhabited, a place where both worlds can exist without one consuming the other. Impossible. Thaddeus spat. Humans and vampires cannot coexist. History proves that you've been trying to maintain separation through fear and violence, I interrupted. And it's failing. Every generation, more humans learn the truth. More vampires want to stop hiding. The bridge isn't coming. It's already here. It's been building for centuries. Orion is just the first to be born fully in that space. I pulled out the manuscript Lysandra had given us, holding it up. This is the original prophecy, not the edited version you've been using to justify your fear. And it says that the king's greatest love, the thing he must sacrifice, isn't a person. It's the old way. The separation. The belief that your survival depends on staying hidden and apart. Draaven moved to stand beside me, his presence solid and unwavering. She's right. I've spent 3 centuries maintaining the divide, believing it kept us safe, but it's made us stagnant. Afraid, we're not living, we're just existing in the spaces between human moments. His hand found the small of my back. Nerida showed me what it means to truly live, to fight for something beyond survival. And Orion, he looked at my son. He's the proof that we can evolve, that we can be more. This is sentiment, Thaddeus snarled, not evidence. Then let me show you. Orion stepped forward, his voice clear and unafraid. He raised both hands, and frost bloomed across the chamber floor, not threatening, but beautiful, spreading in patterns that formed words in a dozen languages, ancient and modern, human and other. The message was simple, repeated over and over, asterisk, we are one, we have always been one. Only fear makes us separate. The temperature dropped, but not painfully. It was like standing at the edge of winter, that moment when the season turns and you can feel the world changing. Vampires gasped, stumbled, reached for each other in confusion and wonder. Because for just a moment, in that cold, they could feel it. Heartbeats, warmth, life flowing through veins that had been still for centuries. This is what he offers, I said, into the shocked silence. Not destruction, not invasion, but remembrance of what you were. What you could be again, if you chose it. The eldest council member stood slowly, his ancient eyes fixed on Orion. I remember, he whispered, sun on skin, the taste of wine, the sound of my daughter's laughter. A single tear tracked down his weathered cheek. I remember being alive. It's a trick, Thaddeus said, but his voice had lost its certainty. An illusion. It's a gift, Draaven said. One we don't deserve, but one I will spend eternity protecting if you let him live. The council members looked at each other, some ancient communication passing between them. Finally, the eldest spoke. The old laws are clear. The seal-bearer has presented evidence. The child lives. The prophecy will unfold as it will, but we will not force it through violence. Thaddeus made a sound of rage, lunging forward, but Kalen was faster, intercepting him with brutal efficiency. The fight was brief and vicious, ending with Thaddeus on his knees, Kalen's blade at his throat. "The council has spoken," Kalen said quietly. "Do you challenge their ruling?" Thaddeus's answer was a snarl, but he didn't move. We left the chamber as dawn approached, climbing back into the world of streetlights and early traffic. Orion fell asleep in the car, his head on my lap, the frost finally gone from his fingertips. Draaven drove in silence, his hand finding mine across the seat. "It's not over," he said finally. "Thaddeus has allies, others who fear change. I know. I watched the city wake up around us, ordinary people starting ordinary days, unaware of what had almost happened in the dark beneath their feet. But we bought time, and time is all we ever really have, isn't it?" He smiled, that rare expression that transformed his face. "I have eternity, and I choose to spend it with you." Later, in the penthouse as morning light painted the walls gold, I stood at the window where Orion had first shown us what he could do. The frost was gone, but I could still see the patterns if I looked carefully, ancient words written in ice, promising change and hope and futures we couldn't yet imagine. Behind me, Draaven wrapped his arms around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. Alive or undead, human or vampire, it didn't matter. We were here, together. And that was enough. Orion stirred on the couch, mumbling something in his sleep, words in a language older than memory, speaking of bridges and choices and love that transcended the boundaries we built between worlds. I closed my eyes and felt it, the space between heartbeats, where anything was possible,